What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today we have to talk about what we saw yesterday at MetLife Stadium as it happened again. The Jets fall to 0-7, the only winless team in the National Football League, with another downright putrid offensive performance, including another putrid offensive performance from Justin Fields. It is another offensive loss as the Jets lose 13-6 to the Carolina Panthers, okay? And by the way, click on that join button if you want to become a Jets latest insider. I don't know how many people are hopping on the bandwagon on this 0-17, but listen, I am going to continue to give it every single day to you, give it to you real, give it to you straight, and this was another bad one. And we have to start with the fact that Justin Fields, the starting quarterback, was benched at halftime, and Aaron Glenn could not commit to who would be the starting quarterback moving forward. We may be on the precipice of a quarterback change for the green and white. First of all, Justin Fields, he goes 6 of 12 for 46 yards before he got benched, okay? They have not scored a touchdown now in their last two games. Fields has now gone two straight games, averaging fewer than 4 yards attempt. That's what I'm talking about. It is a putrid performance from him. Remember the negative net 10 passing yards? He got sacked 3 times again before getting benched, and that was just in one half. They gave up 6 sacks overall, and this is just horrible to watch, quite frankly. And I think Aaron Glenn knows it. Listen to what he said after the game about, putting Tyrod in. And then also, what are they going to do moving forward? He goes, we needed a spark at that time. I felt it was the right time to do it. Obviously disappointed. Offensively, we have a lot of work to do, and that speaks for itself. We'll make the call, but there's a lot of conversation I've got to have with myself to see what I can do to make sure I give us the best chance to win. Obviously, I'm going to talk to the offensive staff and see what their thoughts are. We'll make the right decision. Whatever the decision is, I'm going to go with it, and we are going to move forward. Let me tell you the truth. That sounds like someone who he knows that he now has to kind of make this change or else risk losing the locker room, right? Like, players know. And maybe Aaron Glenn has to come to the realization, and that's what I think he means by the idea of conversation with himself. I think he's in a tough spot, quite frankly, because there's one side of saying you got to see Justin Fields. He has the 2-year contract. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor is not a long-term answer at quarterback. So if they make that move, they are also pretty much effectively moving on and ending the days of Justin Fields. Do they really want to do that, right? Then there's also the chance that maybe Tyrod Taylor is better for them. They're not going to the playoffs or anything. And does that compromise the long-term plan here for the New York Jets? Because if they do finish with a top 5 pick in a quarterback-rich draft, do they compromise that? So I think this is a very tough decision, but I think Aaron Glenn, as a former player, knows that he is now in the position where he may have to make that move. I actually think we are going to hear that next week, going into Cincinnati, it is going to be Tyrod Taylor moving forward. I think Justin Fields, we've kind of seen enough, and we know what it is. I mean, it's been the same thing. There was like 50 net yards against Buffalo. There was the minus 10 net yards. And I have been talking about why I think, honestly, that there is still potential there for him, but it hasn't come to pass. And, we could just keep on running it out there, but then you risk losing everybody else. And Aaron Glenn, Darren Moji, they have to be still on this idea of the long-term rebuild here. And in the same way they held players accountable, right? Xavier Gibson and Williams and others, maybe it is time to hold Justin Fields accountable. That is going to be the tough decision that Aaron Glenn is going to have to make. And we'll talk about it all week here on Jets Latest, but I think the time has come. I think Aaron Glenn is going to make the switch. And here's the other thing. You can hear the way people are starting to talk about it. Listen to Breece Hall. Breece Hall, by the way, 11 carries for 38 yards, didn't do much, right? Listen to what Breece says now about, like, finding motivation, finding your why. Why are you even continuing to play? And it is tough for an 0-17, but Breece Hall kind of compounds this by talking about where the Jets are as an organization, what the fan base sees, and kind of, it's a bleak picture. He goes, it's hard. We've kind of been in this going on 4 years now, being in this organization. You feel it from the fans. You feel it around the building. You feel it everywhere. You feel it as soon as you leave the locker room. At the end of the day, we all have something to play for, whether it's family, whether it's a self-motivating thing. I feel like if you're not motivated to come to work every day and get better, play for your teammates, your coaches, your family, or either other reasons than that, you shouldn't be in this league. Then he was asked about the play calling, and Breece says, whatever they're trying to do, I'm on board with it. Let me tell you something. This sounds like a guy who knows that he is not going to be a New York Jet next year. This sounds like a guy who maybe now all of a sudden, if this decision is made to go with Tyrod Taylor, right? Maybe they do actually put Breece Hall on the trade block. This is a guy in Breece Hall who's talking about like being motivated for his family, being motivated for other reasons other than your teammates and coaches. Maybe he knows that he's kind of auditioning. Maybe he's trying to put something on tape for the other 31 teams. This is the talk of someone that knows that this team is truly done. And I thought last week against the Denver Broncos was rock bottom. I was wrong. This week against the Carolina Panthers is rock bottom and could be so bad that Justin Fields is making a foundational change. Some of the leaders of this team are talking different, and maybe they do sell off because that might be the only way to sell that you have a long-term plan to the fan base, to the team that is going to be there. Maybe we're going to find out who actually belongs here, and that calculus is going to happen. Remember, the Jets have next week against Cincinnati, and then they have a bye week, okay? So there's going to be a while for them to sort of figure out how they are going to move forward here in the second half of the season. I mean, nobody thought it was going to be like this. And quite frankly, that's so different from, remember training camp where the vibes were great, where the energy was high, where the optimism was at an all-time high. This has been gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. And quite frankly, week 1 against Pittsburgh, we could have made all sorts of excuses about how they looked good on offense, right? About how Pittsburgh got lucky. It has really deteriorated since then to now the idea of maybe you have to kind of cut off your nose to spite your face. That's where I think the Jets now are. And you guys know, if you've been listening and watching me here on Jets Latest, I've been telling you I've been preaching patience. I've been saying stick with it. And I kind of still do, but more now in the long-term kind of way. And in order to maintain that in a long-term kind of way, you may have to make some other kinds of changes. And here's the deal. There are still some bright spots on this team. I mean, special teams. I got to talk about the punter, Austin McNamara, as great. And let me tell you something. The defense played all right again. They've given up now 13 points a game for the last 2 games. Okay? But, again, they lose the turnover battle, -2 in this one. They fall to -9 in the turnover battle on the season. And then when asked if his message was getting through or not, because, you know, a lot of people have been talking about Aaron Glenn and kind of the attitude, the presence that he has. And that was a positive going into this season, right? Now that is also starting to turn. But Aaron Glenn is not abandoning what this message is and trying to find this hope. He says, you know, he was asked if his message was not getting through. Aaron Glenn said, I don't see that because the message has always been consistent. These players are not giving up at all. Here's what gives me hope. How they come out on Wednesday, how they come out on Thursday and Friday. We're not getting the results we want, but these players aren't giving up at all. I'll say it again. Maybe that is why Aaron Glenn will, in fact, make the quarterback change, okay? Because he wants to say that there's reason to not give up. He wants to put them in the best position to win. I think he now knows he has to make that tough decision. I don't think Aaron Glenn should get fired. I don't think Darren Muji should get fired. I think this is really, really hard to turn around such a franchise that has been in this doldrums for a long time. We had the kind of right approach. We had the right way of doing it, but it's not going to work out. And that's part of why Justin Fields was on a 2-year below market deal. Okay? That's why all these guys they brought in were on short deals. They are going to continue to throw stuff up against the wall to see what it sticks. This is going to be a long rebuild, and quite frankly, I still believe Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are right for this job. I just think that it has become clear that Justin Fields is pretty much ended, effectively, his starting days in the NFL as a QB1, in my opinion. And that is the big takeaway from this game. Okay, listen, we gave up 13 points. All right. Austin McNamara still punting 50 yards a time, still pinning guys back, but we can't move the ball at all. Yes, Garrett Wilson is out, right? Yes, AVT was out at the beginning of the season. Yes, Josh Reynolds is not a marquee name at number 2 wide receiver, but you got to be able to do more than this. You got to be able to be a little bit more competitive than this. And this has been now a few games where the Jets offense has been blunt guts trash. And I think that is the big takeaway. We are going to continue to talk about it this week because I think we're going to get big news. I think we're going to hear a lot of stuff. If you are a true Jets fan, hold on tight because it is going to get dark. It is going to get ugly. One thing I'm going to tell you, though, is I will be here continuing to talk about it, continuing to give you the real. The goals, the North Star, the time frame, the approach, it actually may change over these next couple of weeks. The game at Cincinnati and then the bye and then the trading deadline, right? As well. So we're going to learn a lot here from these Jets. I believe in Glenn. I believe in Moji. But there's some other things that after we looked at it for the last, I want to say 2 weeks, but after the last 2 months, it's going to be very hard to believe in. Let me tell you what some of you guys are saying. And note, these comments were before the Carolina Panthers game. Maha Coach 2025 says, we saw Fields for 4 years. We don't need another full year of seeing him. We've seen enough already. A career 12% sack percentage. Last year was 9% throwing checkdowns. And running the Steelers offense was pathetic with Fields. He goes, that's not a winning formula unless your defense can hold opponents to less than 10 points a game. Here's the thing. Aaron Glenn thought that was how we were going to play these kinds of games. The defense has allowed 13 points a game, but it's been even below that. And that's what I think is the realization for Aaron Glenn. George Alston, 1933, says, I'm with you, Dane. I'm trusting the process with AG and Muji. Both are learning and give the time to implement their program. Let's get healthy and trust they will bring in the players they need to succeed. That's why I picked this comment, because I do think there is an argument out there, if you believe in Glenn and believe in Moji, that in the time they may now switch a little bit and think about how do they get in the players or the assets to later get players to rebuild this program. We thought this was going to be the step, but maybe it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I think we are going to see that change maybe in short-term versus long-term versus medium-term goals and operation. That's what I think we are going to see the difference of if you are a true blue Jets fan here for the next couple of weeks. I mean, listen, even at 0-5, we knew we weren't going to make the playoffs, right? I said it wasn't about wins and losses. I said this was about, at the end of the season, if we had faith in Aaron Glenn and if we had faith in Justin Fields. I think the Justin Fields question has officially been answered, and that is the big one for now. Aaron Glenn, however, I still do have faith. I still do think they're doing it the right way. I still do think he is the man for the job. It's just that if you were expecting this Jets team to win a bunch of games this year, and I thought they could win, I thought they could get better, I thought they were going to surprise a lot of people. I thought Fields was a dual threat ingredient that would have been necessary for this offense, but that part, I think, has been answered. I'll be here all week to talk about it, and if you want to hear more from me, the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, remember, I'm the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on SiriusXM, Channel 87, the Fantasy Channel. Hopefully, your fantasy team is doing better than 0-7 like the Jets, Jets. But FTN is a great website, all sorts of stuff to make you a better fantasy player and a better sports bettor. If you want to dip your toe in those waters, I got you, all right? Continue to keep the faith, not in the short term, but in the long-term rebuild of this team. Please continue to like these videos, continue to watch these videos, and if you are a real fan of the green and white, you probably will, because you want to know how we are going to figure this out, and tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend. I'll be here talking about it as we go. Like Bill Belichick once said, on to Cincinnati. Truer words have never been spoken. We'll see what these Jets look like when they go on to Cincinnati. But for this episode, after a 13-6 loss to the Carolina Panthers to fall to 0-7 on the season, we out of here. Talk to you tomorrow. Peace.